Hello students, today we will study about the second part of digestion and absorption. This is digestion and absorption, second part. As previously we studied about the structure of digestive system, but here we will discuss about the digestion of food. That is how it works, how the digestive system works. So you must remember about the digestion and absorption. Do you remember it? What is digestion? Digestion is a process, or you can say the process of digestion breaks down complex food molecules that the body cannot readily use into simpler, smaller molecules which the body can absorb and use to fuel other life processes. Each organ in the digestive tract has a specific job and depends on the others to perform properly. And what is absorption? Absorption is the movement of molecules across the gastrointestinal tract into the circulatory system, and as we all know, most of end products of digestion along with vitamins, minerals and water are absorbed in the small intestinal lumen by four mechanisms, and these mechanisms are active transport, passive diffusion, endocytosis and facilitative diffusion. So, in this chapter, first of all we will study about glands. Previously we studied about two glands, and those were gastric glands and salivary gland. The rest of the glands will be discussed here. First of all, intestinal glands, or you can also say them crypts of Leverkusen. Why we are saying it's crypts of Leverkusen? Actually it is named after the 18th century German anatomist John Nathaniel Leverkusen. That's why we also call it crypts of Leverkusen or intestinal crypt. Actually, in histology, an intestinal crypt is a gland found in the epithelial lining of the small intestine and colon. The crypt secrete various enzymes including sucrose, maltose along with entropeptidase and exopeptidase. You can see in this picture, these intestinal glands are kind of hidden between the villi. These are the villi, and intestinal glands are hidden between them at their base, and so because of that they also referred to as intestinal crypt, because they are hidden between the villi at their base. That's why they are also called intestinal crypt. But it is basically a two-wheeler gland. You can say here the two-wheeler gland. It is situated here. That's why we are calling it two-wheeler gland. It consists of mixed secretion of glands of Brunner and crypts of Leverkusen. What is glands of Brunner? These are pancreal glands. You can see here submucosal layer, mucosal layer, here villi, and these are intestinal glands. As I told you, this is hidden between the villi at their base. That's why we are calling it intestinal crypt. Now, intestinal glands secrete intestinal juice, or you can also say it succus entericus. Intestinal juice or succus entericus refers to the clear to pale yellow watery secretions from the intestinal glands. Actually, secretion is stimulated by the mechanical pressure of partly digested food in the intestine, and intestinal juice is composed of hormones, digestive enzymes, mucus and neutralizing substances released from the glands and mucous membrane lining of the small and large intestine. Properties of intestinal juice: it secretes 1.5 to 2 liter per day because it is alkaline in nature. That's why intestinal juice neutralizes hydrochloric acid coming from the stomach, and its secretion is controlled by nervous and hormonal system, and is composed of water, mucus, inorganic salts and enzymes. Now, functions of intestinal juice. Intestinal juice secrete digestive enzymes. These are proteases and carbohydrates. Proteases split proteins into their monomers, that is the amino acids, and carbohydrates split carbohydrates such as starch and sugars into simple sugars such as glucose, which is the simplest sugar on earth. So it digests proteins into their monomers, that is amino acids. These can be divided into endopeptidases and exopeptidases. What are endopeptidases? Endopeptidases are proteolytic peptidases that break peptide bonds of amino acids within the molecule. And what is exopeptidases? In contrast, exopeptidases break peptide bonds from their end pieces. Means endopeptidase targets peptide links between amino acids in the middle of the protein chain, whereas exopeptidases target the available ends of amino acids. And carbohydrates digest disaccharides into monosaccharides. These include sucrose to glucose and fructose, maltase to maltose to glucose, and lactase to glucose and galactose. Next is pancreas. Here you can see pancreas. This is pancreas. This is the head of pancreas. Pancreas is a soft lobulated yellowish pinkish heterocrine gland. Why we are saying heterocrine gland? Because it possesses both exocrine and endocrine properties. It's a gland of 12 to 16 centimeter of length and 2.5 centimeter breadth, which lies posterior to stomach. Pancreas lies posterior to stomach. Pancreas has head in the curve of duodenum, body below the stomach, this is the body, and tail reaching the spleen. And what is exocrine and endocrine? Exocrine glands have duct to carry their secretions to specific locations, and endocrine glands whose secretions are usually secreted directly into the blood. So pancreas consists the quality of both exocrine gland and endocrine gland. The exocrine part of pancreas consists of lobules called acini. Here, these are lobules or acinar. Lobules are exocrine part of pancreas, and it secretes digestive enzymes into the gut by the way of a system of ducts. And these ductules join to form lobular duct. Lobular ducts give rise to main pancreatic duct or duct of Wirsung. You can see here the pancreatic juice is carried by pancreatic duct. This is pancreatic duct or duct of Wirsung into the duodenum through the hepatopancreatic ampulla. This duct is open into the duodenum by the way of hepatopancreatic ampulla. So pancreatic duct joins a bile duct before opening into the duodenum. An accessory duct or senotomy may also take a part of pancreatic juice directly into duodenum through a minor papilla. And the amount of pancreatic juice secreted per day is 500 to 800 milliliter. And pancreatic juice is alkaline in nature and colorless. Now, endocrine part of pancreas. This is a minor part and it's called as islets of Langerhans. These are islets of Langerhans. Islets of Langerhans are tiny groups of specialized cells that are scattered throughout the organ. You can see here tiny groups of specialized cells scattered throughout the organ. These cells secrete glucagon that raises the level of glucose in the blood, insulin that stimulates cell to use glucose, and somatostatin that regulates the secretion of glucagon and insulin. Islets of Langerhans produce hormones that underlie the endocrine function of pancreas. You can see here endocrine and exocrine part of pancreas. This is endocrine part, that is islets of Langerhans. This is exocrine part, that is acinar and duct cells. Acinar cells secrete digestive enzymes and duct cells secrete aqueous sodium bicarbonate solution. This is duodenum. This is bile duct from liver, stomach. At the posterior part of stomach, pancreas is situated, and this is the endocrine part of pancreas that secretes hormones. This is islets of Langerhans or endocrine portion of pancreas, and these are exocrine portion of pancreas. Now, pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice or enzymes. Pancreatic juice or enzymes and hormones present in pancreas. So, pancreas secretes 1 to 1.5 liter pancreatic juice per day. It is alkaline in nature, that's why it diffuses acidity of food coming from stomach. Its pH is 8.6 and it controls the secretion of hormones trypsin, secretin. Pancreaenzyme stimulates the production of enzyme-rich pancreatic juice, and it is composed of water, enzymes and salts. And its chemical composition, it is composed of hormones, digestive enzymes, mucus, neutralizing substances released from the glands and mucous membrane lining of the small and large intestine. And water and salts are the main component of pancreatic juice. Functions of pancreas. or function of pancreatic juice. First of all, the islets of Langerhans secrete insulin and glucagon hormones. So, insulin stimulates cell to use glucose. Glucagon raises the level of glucose or sugar in the blood, and it also secretes somatostatin that may regulate the secretion of glucagons and insulin. So, islets of Langerhans underlie the endocrine functions of pancreas. Secondly, it completes the digestion of starch, or it completes the digestion of starch through pancreatic amylase. Actually, pancreatic amylase hydrolyzes starch, glycogen and dextrins into limit dextrins, maltose and isomaltose. Thirdly, it carries out about half of protein digestion by the way of the action of trypsin, chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase. Actually, trypsin has autocatalytic property. It also changes chymotrypsinogen into chymotrypsin and procarboxypeptidase into carboxypeptidase. Trypsin changes proteins and peptones into peptides. Chymotrypsin curdles milk, and carboxypeptidases break larger peptides into smaller peptides. Fourth one is pancreatic juice is totally responsible for fat digestion because the pancreas is essentially the only source of lipases. So pancreatic lipase converts fats into fatty acids, monoglycerides and glycerol. Last one is pancreatic juice digests nucleic acids. Actually, nucleases hydrolyze nucleic acids into nucleotides. So these are the function of pancreatic juice. Next gland is liver. Liver is a vital organ present in vertebrates and some other animals. It is the largest gland, which is weight about 1.5 kg. Liver lies to the right of the stomach and overlies the gallbladder. It has 4 lobes in man, and these are right, left, quadrates and caudate lobe. It is surrounded by a thick capsule mostly overlaid with reflected peritoneum. So apart from a patch where it connects to the diaphragm, the liver is covered entirely by a visceral peritoneum, which is a thin double-layered membrane that reduces friction against other organs. The peritoneum folds back on itself to form the falciparum ligament. And in males, it generally weighs 1.4 to 1.8 kg, and in females it is about 1.2 to 1.4 kg. And the right lobe of the liver is actually the falciparum ligament divided the liver into 2 lobes, right lobes and left lobes. So the right lobe of the liver is differentiated again in right lobe proper, a quadrate lobe and a caudate lobe in the inferior side. You can see here the picture of liver. This is falciform ligament. Falciform ligament attaches the liver to the posterior portion of the anterior body wall, and falciform ligament is actually the peritoneum which folds back on itself to form this falciform ligament. You can see here the right lobe and left lobe. So the 2 lobes separated by falciform ligament. You can see here this is gallbladder attached to liver with connective tissue. Actually, the liver lies to the right of the stomach and overlies the gallbladder. It is connected to 2 large blood vessels, one called the hepatic artery and one called the portal vein. So the hepatic artery carries blood from the aorta, whereas the portal vein carries blood containing digested nutrients from the entire gastrointestinal tract and also from the spleen and pancreas. You can see here this is right hepatic duct, this is left hepatic duct, which laterally join to form common hepatic duct. This is pancreatic duct, this is duodenum and this is common bile duct. So the 2 lobes of liver produce right and left hepatic duct. A cystic duct comes from gallbladder and hepatic duct, these are hepatic duct and cystic duct join to form common hepatic duct. This is so right and left hepatic duct and cystic duct join to form common hepatic duct. Cystic duct come from gallbladder. This is cystic duct. This is gallbladder. Come from gallbladder and These cystic duct and common hepatic duct join to form common bile duct that attaches with pancreatic duct before opening in duodenum. So when not passing into duodenum, bile from liver lobes enters cytic duct and enters gallbladder for concentration and storage. Now you can see here the clear picture of liver. This is pancreas, this is jejunum, this is major duodenal papilla, this is hepatopancreatic ampulla and sphincter, duodenum, this is cystic duct coming from gallbladder, this is right and left hepatic ducts of liver coming from right and left lobes of liver. They join laterally to form common hepatic duct. So common hepatic duct and cystic duct join laterally to form bile duct. And this is sphincter. So what the role of the sphincter? So when not passing into duodenum, bile from liver lobes enters cytic duct and enters gallbladder for concentration and storage. So this is all about the structure of liver. You can see here this ampulla opens into duodenum. This opening is guarded by sphincter of Oddi. Next is basic structure of liver lobule. Lobule is the basic structural and functional unit of the liver. So in liver, blood vessels subdivided into capillaries which then lead to a lobule. Each lobule is made up of millions of hepatic cells which are the basic metabolic cells. You can see here the picture of lobule. This is hepatic vein. It is a slender intralobular branch of the hepatic vein. A slender intralobular branch of the hepatic vein called central vein or venule forms the axis of each lobule. This central vein forms the axis of each lobule. And each lobule is composed of plates of polyhedral glycogen-rich cells, the hepatocytes. These are polyhedral glycogen-rich cells called hepatocytes, which are arranged radially around a central vein. Between the plates are radial blood sinusoids. These are radial blood sinuses. And at the periphery of the lobule, the branches of portal vein, hepatic artery, bile ducts and lymphatic course together. They join together. This is bile canaliculi. Bile canaliculi is a network of tubular spaces between the hepatocytes, represents the bile canaliculi. And at the periphery of the lobule, the bile canaliculi empty into small Heyring's canal walled by cuboidal epithelium. These canals lead into bile ducts walled by columnar epithelium. The sinusoids, are lined by incomplete endothelium with scattered phagocytic Kupffer cells. These are Kupffer cells that eat bacteria and foreign substances. This is the structure of liver lobule. So liver is encapsulated in man by two sheaths, an outer membranous serous capsule consisting of visceral peritoneum and an inner Gleason's capsule of a thin layer of dense connective tissue. Gleason capsule is the capsule of the liver. It is a layer of connective tissue surrounding the liver and sheathing the hepatic artery, and this is named after the name of a scientist. Numerous thin and profusely branched septa like trabeculae extend inwards from Gleason's capsule, dividing each liver lobe into numerous minute and polyhedral units called hepatic lobules, and the adjacent lobules are separated by interlobular Gleason's capsules. Now, gallbladder. You can see here the gallbladder. Actually, the liver lies to the right of the stomach and overlies the gallbladder. It is a small organ that aids mainly in fat digestion and concentrates bile produced by the liver. It is a pyriform yellow-green muscular sac. It is approximately 8 cm long and 2 cm wide, but in certain mammals like horse and rat do not have gallbladder. You can see here the gallbladder. Now, functions of liver. First of all, in secretion. Liver secretes bile, which is approximately 600 per ml a day, and bile helps in digestion. Next is excretion. Liver excretes cholesterol, steroid, hormones, certain vitamins and drugs through the bile. And urea is also formed in the liver. And also liver changes the decomposed hemoglobin of the worn out red blood corpuscles into bile pigments bilirubin and biliverdin. These pigments are passed into the alimentary canal with the bile for elimination in the fecus. Next is liver helps in glycogenesis. What is glycogenesis? Glycogenesis is the formation of glycogen from glucose. Glycogen is synthesized depending on the demand for glucose and ATP. What is ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. It also helps in glycogenolysis, that is, here glycogen is stored in the liver and muscle and is converted into glucose. This is glycogenolysis. Next is gluconeogenesis. It is the process of synthesizing glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. Next, lipogenesis. Lipogenesis is a metabolic process in animals that converts simple sugars to fatty acids. Next, transamination. As the name implies, it refers to the transfer of an amine group from one molecule to another. This reaction is catalyzed by a family of enzymes called transaminase. And what is deamination? Deamination is the removal of amine group from a compound. Next is hemopoiesis. Hemopoiesis is the formation of blood cells. Actually, liver produces red blood corpuscles in the embryo stage. This is hemopoiesis. Next is storehouse of blood. Liver stores 450 ml of blood in its sinusoids. Next function is blood clotting. Liver cells synthesize blood coagulating proteins like prothrombin and fibrinogen. Production of plasma proteins. Plasma proteins are also formed by the liver. Next is synthesis and storage of vitamins. Liver stores vitamins, sugar and iron to help give your body energy. Detoxification. Liver detoxifies the toxic substances produced during metabolism. Alcohol metabolism. Through oxidation, alcohol is detoxified and removed from the blood, thereby preventing the alcohol from accumulating and destroying cells and organs. Next, desaturation of fats. Desaturation of fatty acids is also accomplished in liver. Heat production. Actually, liver is one of the hardest working regions of the body and produces a lot of waste heat. This is carried around the body in the blood and warms less active organs or warms less active regions. Phagocytosis. The Kupffer cells of livers eats harmful bacteria. Phagocytosis. Lymph formation. Approximately half of the lymph is formed in the liver. Due to the large pores in sinusoidal endothelial cells, fluids and proteins in blood flow freely into the space between the endothelium and hepatocytes, forming lymph. This is all about the functions of liver.